it's Jen here, coming at you from this nice sunny day in Las Vegas. It's finally cooled down enough to be able to get outside. So today we're going to be talking about boundaries, and I have a little bit of a different take on it than you might have heard before. Before we get into that, I'm Jen Kunkel. I'm the creator of the Wild Worth Method to get you from feeling insignificant, invisible, and unfulfilled, and instead to unleash your wild, savvy self, where you know exactly who you are, what you stand for, what you want in your life, and taking purposeful, inspired action towards it. My dog's walking around in the background there. All right, so boundaries. My dog has no boundaries. That's not true. Anyway, all right, so boundaries seem to be interpreted differently by different people. So let me just explain what I mean by that. Most people think about boundaries in terms of what you'll tolerate in your life. You know, people are taking advantage of you and you want to do something about that. You want to stop that from happening. So I have another concept called personal responsibility in one of the pillars of the Wild Worth Method, which is the personal core strengthening. There's 12 characteristics that I have, and personal responsibility is one of them. So I don't really agree with people taking advantage of you. I mean, they might try, but you are responsible for how you react to their attempts to that. And a lot of times people who are setting boundaries think that they need to do that in terms of stopping the other person from taking the action that they're taking, or behaving the way that they're behaving, or talking to you the way they're talking to you, or whatever the case may be. You know, if someone's being mean, or you know, I guess kind of bullying would be one example, and things like that. So, of course, in a perfect world, people would not behave that way. But sometimes people do. And we really don't have a control over what other people do. We only have control over ourselves and how we react and how we respond. And that's where the personal responsibility comes in. And that's actually the best way to set boundaries, because it puts you in control. Because if you're trying to control somebody else, you're really not in control. You're not going to do that. And it's kind of, you know, it's kind of unfair too, because sometimes we get offended by things that people don't really mean as offensive, and they don't even realize, you know, that they wouldn't take as offensive even if it was the other way around. So it's very subjective. So to try to get somebody to stop being a certain way just because you don't like it, or you find it, you know, offensive, or you don't care for it, or it's not in line with your values, then that's kind of not really fair to them, because they should be free to express, you know, what feels right for them. You know, of course, I'm not talking about things like harming other people or stealing, things like that. I'm talking about just differences of opinion and a little, you know, values standpoint. So that does happen, and you know, we can't really expect other people to change the way they view the world completely, just because we don't see it that way. So so taking that personal responsibility is a lot, overall, just a lot better way to set boundaries. So you're really setting the boundaries of what you're going to choose to be around. So you have choices to be around people or to not be around people. And that's where that kind of personal responsibility comes in. Yeah, and that's going to help you with setting boundaries in a really healthy, non-judgy way, so that you're not saying, hey, you're wrong. Oh, yeah, you're wrong and I'm right. I actually had someone tell me one time when I was in a relationship conflict in a prior relationship, and I was talking to my friend about how wrong he was for what he did, and you know, she suggested, hey, you know, maybe it's not that he's wrong, maybe he's just wrong for you, or it's just wrong for you. And that really stuck with me. And the funny thing is, I mentioned that to her a few years later, and she doesn't even really remember saying it, but I'll tell you what, that certainly stuck with me, and I've looked at things a little bit differently since then that maybe it's not wrong. Maybe it was just something that I didn't prefer and I preferred something else. So think about that the next time that you feel like someone's taking advantage of you, or maybe even bullying you, or just being offensive and saying things that you don't like. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're wrong. Maybe it's just wrong for you. And you take personal responsibility to choose whether or not to be around that sort of thing or not. Of course, if it's someone close to you, always a conversation, a tactful, kind conversation about how you perceived that. And that's like that's a whole nother video about how to communicate your feelings without actually blaming another person or being accusatory, so that they can receive it better and you might be able to find common ground. All right, so thanks so much for tuning in. I hope this shifted your perspective a little bit on setting boundaries and what that really means and how to do it in the best way. Let me know below. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much. Remember, you're more powerful than you know. Much love. Have a great day.